Ever think about last words? You know, like how they just stick with you.
Yeah, there's just something about them, right? Like a final message or something.
Exactly. And today, well, we're taking that idea even further.
Further!
Yeah, further than just words. We're going deep on legacy and impact, like how what we do and make, even our genes, they keep impacting things even after we're gone.
Oh, wow. So like a much bigger picture.
Exactly. And we've got some incredible sources for this deep dive. We're talking personal stories all the way out to like cosmic stuff. It's going to be wild.
Okay, I'm intrigued. So not just like physical things we leave behind.
Nope. It's way more than that. Like, think about the ripple effects from our actions, ideas we spread, all that.
So it's like how we influence the world around us.
You got it. And get this. One source says there's a chance that Hitler's broadcast from the 1936 Olympics, could be the first thing aliens pick up.
Whoa, hold on. Hitler. Like the first impression of humanity.
Yeah, talk about a weird introduction, right?
Definitely not the best foot forward, haha.
No kidding. Okay, but seriously though, those radio waves from way back then, they're still traveling out there. But how far can they actually go? Like, we have trouble getting clear signals from Mars, and that's pretty close.
Right. So radio waves, they travel at the speed of light, which is crazy fast, but space is just massive, like unimaginably huge.
So those waves haven't gotten very far.
Well, think of it like this. Imagine a sphere expanding outward from Earth at the speed of light.
Okay, I'm picturing it.
The earliest radio waves, like from the 1900s, they've traveled about 100 light years, which means they've reached a sphere with a radius of 100 light years.
100 light years, that's got to be a ton of stars, right?
Actually, not really. Our galaxy, the Milky Way, it would take light about 100,000 years to cross it.
So even though those radio waves have been going for, like, a century, they've barely reached any of our galactic neighbors.
Exactly. It puts things in perspective, right?
It really does. Like, if there are aliens out there listening, what would they even think of us based on those early broadcasts? It's like we're sending out random bits and pieces of ourselves into the void.
It's almost like sending a message in a bottle, except the bottle is zipping along at the speed of light.
And who knows who'll find it or what they'll think.
Right. Makes you wonder what other messages we've accidentally sent out.
Oh, man. It's like we're constantly making this unintentional legacy, this trail of information without even realizing it.
Totally. And it's not just radio waves either. Think about all the stuff we've launched into space. Satellites, probes, even a car. They all say something about us.
Like cosmic breadcrumbs. Haha. Maybe some future civilization will follow them.
Or stumble upon them, who knows? Like finding a message in a bottle washed up on a distant shore.
Okay, so speaking of leaving our mark, let's shift gears a bit. Let's talk about the moon. Everyone remembers Neil Armstrong's famous line, but what about the last words spoken on the lunar surface?
Ah, good question. Well, before heading back into the lunar module, the last words were from Eugene Cernan back in '72.
Okay, what do you say?
He said, "We leave as we came, and God willing, as we shall return, with peace and hope for all mankind."
Wow, that's powerful stuff. Really captures that whole spirit of exploration, hoping for a better future and all that.
It does, but there's a little twist.
Oh, what's that?
Those weren't technically the very last words. There was a countdown after by Harrison Schmitt.
Ah, okay, so maybe not as poetic. Still part of history, though. But it makes you wonder, what would you say if you could have the last word on the moon?
That is a tough one. I mean, what message would you want to leave behind? Not just for future humans, but maybe for, other beings out there.
Yeah, it's like choosing an epitaph, but on this massive scale.
Exactly. What legacy would you want to represent?
Okay, so we've covered leaving our mark on the moon. But let's bring it back down to Earth for a second and talk about another type of legacy. One of the sources talks about Bach's The Art of Fugue. They say it's an example of legacy that goes beyond just our final words.
Ah, The Art of Fugue. An incredible piece of music. It's really complex, beautiful, but, well, Bach died before he could finish it. Left it open-ended.
Oh, wow. So what happened? Did someone else try to complete it?
That's what makes it so interesting. Because it was unfinished, it's become this, living piece of music. Composers are still reconstructing it today, adding their own interpretations. It's like they're writing new last words to it constantly.
So it's like Bach's legacy keeps evolving, shaped by all these other people. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Really changes how you think about a fixed legacy, doesn't it?
It does. Makes you think about what it means for art to be finished and how we handle, interpreting and carrying on someone else's vision. Big questions.
Yeah, it's like each new take adds another layer to the piece. Makes it richer, more complex over time.
Exactly. It reminds us that legacy isn't always about one specific moment. It can be an ongoing process, changing and being reinterpreted.
It's wild to think that a piece of art can keep changing even after the artist is gone. Like it's an ongoing conversation or something.
Yeah, and it makes me think about this quote from one of the sources by Banksy. It goes, "They say you die twice. One time when you stop breathing, and a second time a bit later on when somebody says your name for the last time."
Whoa, that's heavy.
Yeah.
So, like, our legacy depends on being remembered, on people saying our name.
That's what it sounds like, right? But I wonder if it's more complicated than that. Like, what about all the people whose names we don't know, but they still did things that changed the world?
You mean like those composers who are reinterpreting Bach? We might not know all their names, but what they're doing is shaping how people experience the art of fugue today.
Exactly. So maybe it's not just about our name being remembered. Maybe it's about the ripple effects, the things that keep happening long after we're gone because of what we did.
It's like that thing from the sources about Earth being a feedback system.
Yeah.
Everything's connected, so cause and effect can get super complex.
Yeah, it's like a giant web, you know? You tug one little string and the whole thing vibrates.
They use the example of a plane. Like, if it's off course by even 1 degree, it ends up in a totally different place.
It really shows how even small things can have big consequences, sometimes ones we don't expect at all.
It's kind of humbling, isn't it? Knowing that we're always setting things in motion for ourselves and everyone else.
Definitely. And it makes you think about legacy differently. It's not always about doing something huge and famous. It can be about everyday choices, how we treat each other, simple acts of kindness, all of that.
Right, so even if we don't become famous, our actions still have this ripple effect. They reach further than we can see.
Exactly. Think about it. Every choice we make, it sets off a chain reaction, and we can't predict how it'll all play out. Pretty amazing, if you ask me.
I'm starting to see how all these different ideas fit together. Hitler's broadcasts, Bach's unfinished music, it all comes back to this web of cause and effect, how past, present, and future are always interacting.
That's it. It's like we're part of something so much bigger than ourselves, something that goes beyond time and space. Makes you see how even our everyday actions contribute to this huge story.
It also makes me think about genetic legacy. That came up in the sources too.
Oh, yeah. One of them talked about Mrs. Fyodor Vasilyev. She had, get this, 69 children.
Hold up, 69? Are you serious? That's insane.
It's true. 16 pairs of twins, 7 sets of triplets, and 4 sets of quadruplets.
Wow, talk about leaving your mark on the world. I mean, that really proves that legacy isn't just about being famous or accomplishing big things.
Right. And it highlights this whole other side of it, what we could call anonymous influence. Even if nobody knows our name, our genes, our actions, they all become part of this ongoing tapestry of life.
It makes you wonder about all the people throughout history who did things that shaped the world, but we'll never know their names. Kind of humbling, you know?
It is. Reminds us that legacy isn't just about what we achieve as individuals. It's about being part of this bigger thing that connects us to everyone who came before us and everyone who will come after.
Like we're all links in a chain, each one making the whole thing stronger.
And even though we might not see the full impact of what we do, we can choose to do things that promote good stuff, you know? Kindness, creativity, that sense of connection with other humans.
I like that. It's empowering. Like, even if we don't know the full extent of our influence, we can still make a positive difference.
Absolutely. And that leads us to something else the sources pointed out. The sheer size of the universe. We talked about how far our radio waves have traveled, but that's nothing compared to how big things really are.
It's mind-boggling, right?
Yeah.
Think about how vast and old the universe is. Makes you wonder if our little lives even matter in the grand scheme of things.
It's a question people have been asking forever, but I think the answer lies in changing our perspective a bit.
Okay, I'm listening. What do you mean?
Instead of getting overwhelmed by the hugeness of it all, let's zoom in. Focus on the impact we can have within our own reach.
So you're saying that even if we're just a tiny speck in the universe, our actions still matter in our own little corner of it.
Exactly. It's like those ripples we were talking about. They might start small, but they can spread out and touch a lot of lives in ways we might never even know.
Like the butterfly effect, right? Flapping its wings and causing a hurricane on the other side of the world.
Well, maybe not that extreme, haha, but it shows how everything's connected and how even small things can have big, unpredictable consequences.
Okay, I'm seeing how this all ties together. Hitler's broadcasts, Bach's music, Mrs. Vasilyev's giant family, it all points to this web of interconnectedness.
It's a reminder that we're all part of this huge story that's been unfolding for billions of years. And even though we might not see the whole picture, we can choose to do things that make it more beautiful, more complex, more meaningful.
It really is amazing to think about how everything's connected like that. From, tiny choices to this massive universe.
It is, yeah. It's both humbling and empowering, you know what I mean? Humbling because we're just a small part of it all, but empowering because we can still make a difference.
I totally get that. It makes me think about those unfinished works like Bach's
Mhm.
music. It's like life itself is kind of unfinished too, right? Always changing, evolving with each generation.
Yeah, I love that analogy. Just like the art of fugue keeps getting new interpretations from musicians, the world keeps changing because of what people do and think.
So instead of worrying about leaving some perfect legacy behind, maybe it's more about just being part of the journey, doing what we can, and trusting that things will keep going after we're gone.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It takes the pressure off, you know? Like,
Uh,
we don't have to create some grand finale. We can just focus on enjoying each moment, connecting with others, making things a little better.
it's like we're all running a relay race, passing the baton to the next generation.
Exactly. And who knows what amazing things they'll do, what they'll discover.
It really is exciting to think about, and it makes me realize our job isn't to control the future. It's more about, like, creating the conditions for it to flourish.
Yeah, planting seeds that could grow into something incredible and trusting that future generations will build on what we've done, just like we built on what came before us.
It's like we're all writing this big story together, each adding our own chapter, our own perspective.
And we might not get to see the ending, but we're still part of creating it. Pretty cool when you think about it.
Definitely humbling and inspiring, too. Humbling because we're just a small part of something huge, but inspiring because we can still make it more beautiful, more meaningful.
And hey, if those aliens we talked about are listening, what a story they'll have to hear.
A story about creativity, resilience, wanting to explore and connect, figure out our place in all of this.
It's a story that's still being written, for sure. So, to everyone listening, I hope you embrace your part in it. Add your own voice. Leave the world a little better than you found it.
Well said. And as always, everyone, keep exploring, keep asking questions, keep diving deep. Until next time, happy exploring.